Good day, good afternoon, good evening, class. We're going to talk about today on the psychological counseling, PC10S1. And as you can look at the first slide, you will see that there is a street board or a street, a pole with different questions. And if you look at those questions, it asks the question of where, what, when, why, how, so many questions. Now, when it comes to psychological counseling, it all deals about questions and answers, or answers. And as a counselor, when you're going to counsel somebody, is you will have a client in front of you that's going to ask those kind of questions: who, why, what, where, how, when. And this is what the subject is all about. So we're going to look at the psychological counseling and what role does psychological counseling play when it comes to HIV and AIDS. And it's very important for you to understand that you are going to find yourself in a situation that you might counsel somebody, or you might become a counselor, or this course might only be a foundation for you to study further into psychological counseling. So it's very important for you to know that psychological counseling has a very important role to play, especially for somebody that have just discovered that he or she is HIV positive, and you have to counsel this person. So there are so many questions, and this is what this course is all about. So the next slide is we are going to look at the different concepts of psychological counseling. We're going to look at psychological thinking. We're going to look at different theories, practices. But I'm just going to highlight. So I will encourage you to look through your study guide, and then also go on the internet, on Google, and search for more information on the theories and the practice of counseling, and what role it plays, and why it's very important to understand and to know these different theories. So I'm going to explain in detail about it, or I'm going to give you a small synopsis about the different theories and how it works. And then secondly, I'm going to look at the HIV/AIDS counseling. I'm going to look at your counseling during the pre-test, your counseling during the post-test, and then of course your counseling after the test, means when you have to give support to the person. And what do you do when the person is dead, or when a loved one died because of HIV, and you need to give the supportive, what we call bereavement counseling, which is a supportive bereavement counseling. Then we're going to look at the whole role of VCT, how it's very important that you have to look at the VCT itself, and all those information, which is very important. So the first thing is we're going to look at the concept. Now, if you look at those two pictures, the first one, you will see a mother having this child, and all you can look at this child is crying. Now, looking at the child is crying, there is so many questions. Now, you are the counselor, and this mother and child just came into your office, and you see the first picture. What goes through your mind? What do you think? So this is what psychology is all about. It's all about the emotion of a person. It's about happiness. Is the person sad? Is the person happy? Is the person satisfied? Does the person experience pleasure? Does the person experience love, dignity, discrimination, rejection, fear? Why does the person cry, for an example? So it's very important to understand, when you look at psychological counseling, there are emotions involved. The second picture you will see is the single man, and he's giving different facial expression, and now someone might express his or his face, but does what he or she, or what this man, for an example, express, does he really express his emotion, or is there a message behind his face? Now, there are two kinds of communication, or way that you can communicate. There are verbal communication, and there are also non-verbal communication. Now, the verbal communication is what you communicate with your mouth. But the non-verbal communication is what you see with your action. It's my facial expression, is my nose, my eyes. But it does not say that the way how I use or move my eyes or wing my eyes, that I'm saying what I really mean. And this is what psychology is all about. It looks into the seat of the emotion, the seat of that emotion. What does that person really feel? It goes inside that person. And this is what the subject already wants to do. So you have to understand that that it's all about the psyche. It's all about the person itself. The emotion, what that person experience, and how that person see things, for an example. Because sometimes you will find yourself sitting in front of someone and this person just start to cry. And then you wonder, why does this person cry? So there are reasons why someone is crying, and this is the purpose of psychological counseling. It wants you to understand that you, when you are dealing with a human being, there are different aspects that you have to look at, which are very important. So it's important to understand what psychology is all about. Now, when we look, for an example, at the different theories, now these are the global theories or the accepted theories of psychology, which are globally used. Doesn't matter which school of thought you are, but these theories are very important. And I will encourage you that you must go into your study manual and then to go into detailed study, read more about these theories, because I'm just going to scan through these theories. So the 5 theories that I'm going to identify for this class, for the session, which it also have an aspect when it comes to HIV/AIDS. Number 1, it's behavioral theories. How do you behave, for an example? How do people behave? How do human being behave? How do humans behave, for an example? So there are different kinds of theories that you have to look at. The other one is the developmental theories. It's how the person grow from a baby up to adult. When that person grow, or a human being grows, what are the different development stages? So these are the theories when it comes to the developmental theories, when they look at the issues of development and what changes happen within that person when that person goes through those developments. The other theory, the third one, is the cognitive theory, which is very important to understand the mind of the person. And these are the aspects that you have to know as a psychological counseling. How does cognitive theories actually influence a person when it comes to HIV? You have the personality, where you have different personalities, people looking, for an example, at the psyche, looking at the ID, the super echo. These are the different aspects that you have to look. Why does the personality theory plays a role, for an example, to somebody that's HIV positive or somebody that's been infected? Then you've got the humanist theory, for an example, which is also very important, that look at the humanity, and this is which is very much more used when it comes to human resources. And these are some of the theories that you have to understand. So this is the whole theory. So when you look at psychological counseling, or when you want to counsel somebody, you have to base your method or your methodologies on one of or a combination of these theories, which are very important. Now, why do you need to know these theories? The reason why you need to know these theories, number 1, is it gives you a way of how do you approach your problem. For an example, you will have a client that sits in front of you, and you will ask this client a question, and this client will answer you the question, and by using this theory, you will know, for an example, how to solve the problem, or how to facilitate the client to solve the problem. And many times when it comes to problem, it is not your role as a counselor to solve the problem. You are only there to facilitate the process of solving the problem. And many times when the client comes to you, the client already have the solution. The client knows what the solution of his or her problem is. And you, as a psychological counselor, you just need to facilitate the process and to help the client to make the right right decision, or to bring the client or to give the client options. And at the end, it is the client that makes the decision to know that which option is the right solution for the problem. Then it also helped then for you to find new ways to explain why do somebody behave in a certain way. For an example, you find somebody that just out of anger, or out of jealousy, killed his girlfriend or his wife or his child. And you ask yourself, but why does this person kill his spouse, for an example? And is it out of passion? Is it out of hatred and out of anger? And these are some of so these theories will help you to understand, for an example, why does certain people behave in a certain way. And by applying this theory will help you then to better understand. And the moment when you understand the behavior of people, then it's also easier for you to predict how people behave in a certain way. For an example, I want to give an example is when you have, there was a test or a research done looking at the conditioning, at how are people influenced by their condition where they live, or is it inherent? Where they take two children, it was a twin born by the same mother, and then by birth, these two sons, which were twins, born by the same mother, they were then put into different environment. The one was put in an environment where it was very violent and it was only a one parent, they were absent father, and the other one was put in a very safe environment where this child grow up with both a mother and a father in a very safe environment. After 18 years, they went back and to see what happened to these two babies, only to discover that although the babies were born from the same mother, they found out that the one that was born with in a very violent or grow up in a very violent environment, became a juvenile at a very young age, went to jail, never completed school. But the one that grew up in an environment that was safe with a mother and father, for an example, grew up and completed high school. Now the question scientists are asking, or psychologists are asking, can your environment dictate the outcome of your behavior? So this is something that you as a student can answer the question, or the question. The other reason also why you need the psychological theory, of course, is it's how can you look at treatment, it's how can you develop new treatment and different approaches to solve problems that are related to the behavior of the person. So there are also different theories, what we call the modern theories. I'm not going to look into the social behavioral theories, but I want to look at the other modern theories which are very popular now. It's what we call the AIDS reduction model. It speaks by itself. It's a model that you can use. One example I can give, in Namibia we are using the ABC model, which stands for abstinence, behavior and condom, and then of course D, which also stands for delay. So though you can use different kinds of models at looking at how you can reduce the HIV/AIDS. The other model is of course innovation. You can use innovation. Also your health belief is another model you can use. Social cognitive theories, trans-theoretical model, theory of recent action. So these are also the other aspects of theories that people can also use, which are also very important, especially when it comes to psychological counseling. So I will encourage you students, due to our time that's very limited, I will encourage you to go and to read what this different theory stands for, the model stands for. It's in your study guide, and if it's not in your study guide, you can Google and you can search. It's very, very important. There are different kinds of models. So I want to look at the specific models. And why do we look at the models of human behavior? Because this psychological counseling, the subject is linked to HIV/AIDS. And we are asking is, why are people engaged in risky behavior so that they can become infected with HIV? Or why do people engage themselves in risky behavior so that they can become juveniles? So There are different kinds of models. So, and I'm going to use the aspect of group, or the group concept with regard to this model. Now, if you can look at this picture, you will see a group of chimpanzees. There are baboons sitting around there, very relaxed. They are in a group. You will never find chimpanzees sitting alone on their own. They are always in a group, and this is something that I want to look at. So if you look at that picture, it tells you that group dynamics is very important. So people can be influenced by a group. It's very important to understand that aspect, and if you understand that aspect, why people are infected by group, it's very important. So if you look at that aspect of people that are being infected, then you ask yourself the question, for an example, is why do people still remain in a group? And because when you are in that group, you are a member of that group, there are certain functions, there are certain things that you are do. So which means you have to function according to you behave. If you are in a group that call themselves a gang, you have to behave. So at the end of the day, you have this peer pressure, or this pressure on you, which actually forces you then to behave a certain way. And then of course you've got different aspects or different types of groups which are very important. And these different types of group are playing a very important role, for an example. And if you look at this types of groups, the first example I can give you have an example, a group that call themselves a gang, a second group that call themselves a political party, a second group call themselves a church, another a sect. So you have so much different, and every group are defined by their concept or how they see themselves, and then they act accordingly. And then of course, which is very important, is when you look at the group, a group is always formed. There is a format, there is a formation, and when this group then are being formed, then they start to develop. You find what I mean with development is a group starts with one person, and then at the end you will find the group, the two people join the group, three, and then as people join the group, then the group become larger and larger. And then of course with that, as I've said, with group comes behavior, and people start to behave certain behavior. And it's very interesting. If you have a group of people that are using drugs, you will find one person will use the drug, and at the end the whole group will use drugs. So it's very important that you have to know that why do people behave in certain way is because it's also, let's take peer pressure. You have this young person in school, at university, part of a group of 3-4 person, then one of the group decide, let's do that, let's go and break into a market or into a shop, or let's break into a car, into a house. You don't feel like doing it, but because of that pressure, being part of the group, it forces you also to commit that behavior. And this is actually which the model is looking at. So the other aspect that we're going to look at also in psychological counseling, which is very important also for the subject, is the whole aspect of VCT, volunteer counseling and testing. Now, volunteer counseling and testing is a concept which is based on the UNAIDS policy. UNAIDS, which is part of the UN body, are having certain policy, and it's very important that you need to know is one of the most important policy or the principle for any volunteer counseling testing center VCT is the whole aspect of confidentiality. Because when you are dealing with psychosocial counseling, is you are dealing with somebody that's standing at the crossroad of his or her life. This person has to make a decision. What am I going to do? I just discovered that I'm HIV positive. I need help. The fact that that person comes to you as a counselor and asks for help or asks for counseling means that that person actually trust you as a counselor. So that's why confidentiality is very important. So you cannot disclose the privacy of this person. You cannot disclose the information whatever that person has shared with you to a third party. So a third party in a whole counseling session, it's a taboo. So you cannot, it's not allowed, whatever you discuss with the client, to keep everything. So that's why somebody told me once that the graveyard it's a place full of secrets. Yes, it means that sometimes you, as a counselor, you have to go to the grave with somebody's secrets. Even your partner, even your friends must not know the secret of your client. So that's why confidentiality is very important when it comes to psychosocial counseling. There are different components when it comes to psychosocial counseling, and one of the components which is very, very important, of course, is pre-test counseling. And pre-test counseling only means that it's test, that the person needs to go through a test before counseling. So the person comes in, you explain the person the situation, what is HIV, why do you need HIV, then explain the person what the test is all about, what are you going to do in the test, what's going to happen. So that's where you prepare the person to go for a test. Then the person will go, the second component is then the testing itself, where the test will go for rapid testing, or it will go for ELISA testing. And after the results comes back, then you will call the client to come in to hear the results, which we call the post-test counseling. And during the post-test counseling, which only stands for counseling after the test, is to explain the person his or her status. And as you can look at those pictures on your slide, you will see then it's the whole process from the pre-test to the testing to the post-test. And then the last aspect of volunteer counseling testing is ongoing counseling. Is you need to counsel this person, and sometimes it will help for this person to be part of a support group. So it's very important to look into it. And with regard to volunteer counseling, is there are different models that people are using, but at the end of the day, doesn't matter which model you are using, it's very important for you to know and for you to understand when it comes to volunteer counseling and testing, you have to stand to those principles which are laid down by UNH. Coming to ongoing counseling, which is very important, just something I actually wanted to say is you actually, especially when somebody just discovered that person, he or she is HIV positive, this person must actually know and accept. Because the moment you are HIV positive, you will go through different stages. The first stage is denial, and then the first stage is the infection, information. It's you get the enlightenment, and then you will go first, through denial. You don't accept your fate. You think you are going to die. Then that's where ongoing counseling comes in, because between the denial and the acceptance of the reality is that counseling help you then to accept and to embrace your reality. And the moment when you accept and embrace your reality, being HIV as positive, then during your ongoing counseling, the counselor can then help the person, or you as a counselor can help the person to live positively. When I mean live positive, means positively here, positively in his subconscious mind, positively in his mind, because 50 or 60% of the time, why the person is still in that state of sickness, or feeling sick, is because that person feels that there is no hope for him or her. So ongoing counseling is very important. So this is the end of my presentation. I will encourage you to go to your psychological counseling manual to go and read further. I will then also encourage you to go on the internet, study, so that you can have a better understanding. So I hope this lesson will help you to study, get yourself ready for your test, assignment, and of course for your exams. Thank you.